What's your fuck me? That was lucky story. Driving to a horse show, following the freight truck that was pulling our trailer. These were pretty fancy horses. There were 6 on board that had roughly a combined value of 250 to 300k. We were in the center lane on a 3-lane highway. Some dipshit tried to speed past in the left lane to get in front of us, but caught the gravel on the shoulder. His car lost control and spun directly into the front left wheel bumper of the freight truck. His car ricocheted into the ditch, spun about 4 times, but luckily didn't flip. His whole passenger side was a crumpled mess. The truck had the wheel jammed, and the driver had almost no control as the rig was pulled over onto the shoulder. It started hitting the ditch as well, and the trailer started tipping to the left. I have never been more terrified in my life. I was certain it was going to flip jackknife and take the horses and driver with it. We think the horses leaned back when they felt the trailer tipping, because somehow it corrected itself and got back on both sides of wheels, and the driver was able to brake before the rig was totally in the ditch. The horses were all totally fine, just a bit shaken up. The driver of the car was somehow totally fine. I had called an ambulance for him because I was certain he would be dead or dying after the impact. Ended up 100% okay, and the driver of the rig busted 2 fingers on the steering wheel while he was trying to maintain control. It was absolutely fucking horrifying, and I can't believe it ended as well as it did. I'm sure the ordeal only lasted a few seconds, but it honestly felt like a lifetime, and we were totally helpless to it. Being the fastest sperm, from what I heard, the other sperm have to weaken the egg up before it can get fertilized. So basically your brothers and sisters did all the work, and you just came in and took credit for their work. I don't mind kill stealing IRL. A huge branch about 50 feet up fell from a tree and landed a foot right next to me. That's one way to dodge the family tree. Was it a storm, or just out of nowhere? Out of nowhere, there was a guy behind me who witnessed it. We both had a good laugh about it. Had this happened twice actually. About 20 years ago, I used to travel the world installing and fixing things. Well, while I was in South America, I was told I was needed in Maracaibo, Venezuela. Nothing unusual. I asked the project manager to make me reservations at the same hotel everyone else was staying at and email me the information. I call our travel agent and get a ticket to Venezuela. Well, as I was leaving, I forget what country I was in, my AC adapter for my PC blew, and my PC was completely dead. I flew in late at night, so no one was in the office to call, and since my PC was dead, I had no clue where the hell I was supposed to be staying that night. I had been talking to a guy on the plane to Maracaibo, and he gave me the name of a hotel that was pretty nice according to him. I write down the name and catch a cab to take me to the hotel. I go up to the desk and ask if they have any rooms for the night. As I give them my credit card and information, they look at my name and say, "Oh, I think you have a reservation." Sure as shit, I managed to find the hotel I had a reservation at using nothing but complete dumb luck and going to a random hotel a stranger I had never met before recommended. I had a very similar thing happen in Lima, Peru. Again, no idea where I was supposed to stay, so I pick a hotel at complete random from a billboard in the airport. Well, it wasn't a hotel I was staying at, but they were the same company. They told me I was staying at the hotel around the corner that was owned by them. Gunned the throttle of my ATV when I was a 15-year-old. Felt like being stupid and reckless and wanted to speed down my neighborhood road. It had just snowed a ton, easily a foot and a half. As I'm rocketing down the road, I thought it would be cool to swerve back and forth a bit. As I'm beginning to ride on the border of the road and my neighbor's lawn, I remembered the neighbors had recently put huge decorative stones exactly where I was heading. The snowfall had just reached the point of covering them, so I didn't see it until it was too late. All I remember was the wheel hitting one of those stones at maybe 40 miles per hour, and the entire ATV lurching to the left. I ended up blacking out and came to maybe 5 to 10 seconds later, stopped in the middle of the road and totally fine. Adrenaline was rushing and heart was palpitating, and I was absolutely dumbfounded as to A, how I was okay, and B, what had happened. Could be a higher powers intervention at play, but needless to say, I not only rode the ATV safer, but when I got my driver's license a year later, I swore to be the safest driver. 10 years later, I've never even gotten an offender bender before, knock on wood, so I assume this event did have a positive influence on my life. Hiking through the woods of North Georgia with my 16-year-old daughter. She yells out, "Dad, snake." I look down and I had stepped less than 2 from a 6 to 8 feet timber rattlesnake. Any further to the left and I would have stepped on its head. Apparently, it had just eaten a large meal and was stretched out in the sun digesting it. We were pretty far into the woods that I would have been in serious trouble if it had bitten me. Were you rattled? That's putting it lightly. I spun out on the highway going 70 miles per hour and ended up flipping the car 3 to 5 times before landing upside down. The few people who saw couldn't agree on the number of flips, and I was not in a position to properly judge at the time. Instead of hitting the solid wall that was along most of the right side of the highway, I hit a gravel embankment that softened the initial impact. I somehow did not hit any other cars and was driving by myself at the time. After the car stopped moving and I crawled out, I saw that I'd landed perfectly positioned on the side of the road out of the path of oncoming traffic. I ended up with a mild concussion and a traffic ticket for occupying multiple lanes at one time. The car was fully covered by the insurance at its Blue Book value, even though it was on its last leg. It's a small miracle no one was seriously hurt. The only way I can describe how my car looked is to look up what the Titanic looks like right now in 2019. Make that boat a Honda Accord, that's your mental image. I used to work at a McDonald's with my buddy, and we unloaded the truck and got done around 9-ish. So we head out to the lobby when we see an older lady with a staff with a face carved into it. She wore a black dress and hat with a blue feather in the rim. She had a bandana around her face. We had a lot of weird people walking all the time, so we didn't mind her. We got our food and sat down in a booth, but I had forgotten sauce for my McNuggets, so I asked the cashier for some more, and he said while taking her order that she said she used her staff to cast spells and curses on people. Kinda spooked, I went back to my booth with my buddy when the same lady called me to her table and asked if I could change the TV channel. I told her the managers have to keep it on CNN, but that started the conversation between me and her about her staff. It was Ironwood and its name was Sam. She told me she was an Apache witch doctor. I asked a few more questions about her, and she said she probably won't remember me anytime soon because she survives 3 brain aneurysms. But because she had a very nice conversation with me, she gave me good luck. She left. My buddy and I went to Starbucks with a big order, and the guy there said the system was updating, and we got all of it for free. That's about the only story I have. I was skipping school and walking back to my house. My stepdad happened to be in the back garage getting some tools, got work, and would have seen me if I took the usual route home. I knew he would leave soon, so I thought I would just hop the neighbor's fence so he wouldn't see me go into the house. As I jumped the fence, my shoelace got caught and I fell face first to the ground. When I looked up, there was a tree stump 2 inches from my face. If I would have fell on it, I would have broken my neck and died. I'm still convinced in a parallel universe I died that day. Lost control of a car. I was a dumb kid, driving too fast. Flipped the car. I didn't roll it, the car flipped end over end a few times, landing upside down. I didn't have a scratch on me. For the few decades since, I drive like a little old lady. It was my first and only auto accident. Literally happened this morning. Bought coffee, walked out of shop, dropped coffee, caught coffee before it hit ground, didn't spill, went on my merry way, coffee in hand. Was driving down the highway at highway speed, came up on a turn underneath a bridge, and was suddenly greeted with fully stopped cars. Slammed on the brakes, but of course it was also winter, and there happened to be black ice there. Jesus took the goddamn wheel, and I somehow managed to S-curve out of the lane and into the shoulder, where I proceeded to slide across snow for a solid 10 plus cars before stopping, with no damage to anybody or anything. So there was ultra hard test from physics. As classes in Polish high school are split up by interests, with our being the humanities, we were pretty much shit from it. We searched the entire web to find this test, as he always gave us ones from the publisher known as No Era Fucking Hell. All was either a virus or we needed to be a teacher to access those files. So we were left pretty much hopeless. That is until at our school there was a celebration and everyone was gathered in the gym. As we listened to all the boring things our principal had to say, my friend approaches me. He basically says, "You do realize that every teacher is here?" I am like, "Yeah. What of it?" He then says, "Insert physics guy name here is here as well. Let's go to the physical laboratory and search for those tests." I am like, "Have you fucking lost your mind? If they find out, we are basically fucked." He's like, "Worth a try." I don't know what made me say so, but I say, "Alright, let's do it." So we go out from the gym to the janitor. The guy sells him BS that he forgot to take the pendrive from the physics lab. Janitor gives us the key. We go to the lab. We enter. We cannot find anything, but I spot the pendrive of the teacher. Idiot steals the fucking pendrive. We close the door, like nothing has ever happened. But then the fucking heart attack. Charwoman spots us and asks what we were doing. I say that friend forgot a pendrive. He shows it. She's like, hey, move along. We go to the classroom to get the files from pendrive to our phones. We copy all that shit. We check the files. Fuck, it's protected by a password. We go back to the physics lab. We place the pendrive back there. We leave. The celebrations were almost over, and as we go to older at class, the physics teacher spots us. Heart attack fucking X2. Obviously, he asks what are we doing. We sell him BS that the celebrations were boring AF, and that we went out for a talk. He leads us back to the gym. We have the files, but they are protected by a password. After the celebrations are over, we go to the older at class. We make a deal. We will give them cash for beer, and they will try to break the passwords. We give them the cash. Friend overlooks the operation later that day. They manage to break the password at 11 p.m. We know the test. We go to school. We are prepared for it like never before. We do it. We get an A5 by Polish grade system. Physics guy doesn't suspect anything. Epic victory royale as well as holy shit, that was lucky. When I was in college, I had this boyfriend who would live off campus. I also had a small little bong I loved so fucking much. We lived in a suite style room, and my roommates were out that weekend, so I took the opportunity to clean it using the common space. There was a sink and a table I needed for space. After I finished cleaning it, I went out to the library to finish some homework. After a while, my boyfriend met up with me and asked if he could grab some of his clothes from my suite, so I gave him my key. A few hours later, I came back to a notice on my door. There had been a room inspection which we had failed. It didn't say why we failed, but that we were to meet with our RD in the next few days to talk about how we failed. And we would get a formal email Monday if we violated school policy. I was fucking freaked. My face was hot, my stomach was tight, kinda freaked. I opened the door and saw my bong was gone. So naturally I assumed they confiscated it. I freaked out and went to the RD's office to talk about it. When I got there, he seemed fine. Which made me more suspicious. He then brought up the violation being my wall lights and tapestry being a fire hazard. At this point I got even more confused. And asked anything else? And he just shook his head and said nope. I went back to my room and called my boyfriend. Turns out he took the bong because I was planning to stay at his that night, and we were probably gonna use it. Dodged. A fucking bullet. Went to work early in the morning after just a few hours of sleep, without drinking my coffee. 95% of the way is just driving straight. Fell asleep for a few seconds, and after I woke up, my car was going off the road in the direction of a big tree, but I managed to get back on the road. A second more and I would have hit the tree. Now I really value a good sleep and never drive when I am sleepy. I learned my lesson, I guess.